Everything around us is influenced by design, from the clothes that we wear, to the cars that we drive, even to the very phones that for some reason we just can't keep down. And I have observed that if something is properly designed to meet our needs, we tend to adapt and adopt. And if something is difficult and complicated by design, then we tend to refrain and refuse. Now, in the early days of starting my company in software design and development, there seemed to be a disconnect between that which our clients wanted and that which we delivered. Now, being techies, there was a great force pulling us towards seclusion to build products or services as we ourselves had envisioned, which then led me to ask, how can we bridge this divide? How can we think differently? How can we approach problem solving differently? To give you a little background about myself is that by profession, I'm a software engineer. Back in school, I was taught to be analytical in my reasoning, to use models such as the SWOT analysis in dealing with my day-to-day challenges. I was taught to be smart enough to recognize the strengths in the solutions I wanted to create, the weaknesses that were presented in the process of solving these challenges, to explore the possible opportunities that would come, and most importantly, to be aware of the threats. Now, in the conventional academic environment where I would study for an exam the eve or the very morning before exam, I thrived. But when I tried to apply similar models in emergent needs, then there was a challenge. Now, don't get me wrong that the models such as SWOT analysis do not work, but in the process of building innovative ideas in emergent markets, there seemed to be a disconnect on how to relate these two things. This is when I discovered about design thinking. So over the past 2 or more years, I've been part of teams, and I've also been in charge of many trainings to teach people on the precepts of design thinking. What is design thinking? Design thinking is a mindset. It's a solution-based approach towards solving problems with a very keen focus in a human-centered approach. It simply starts with the question, why? Now, all of us in the room, I would bet that we have all come across that annoying child who for some reason can't stop asking why. It could be your son, your daughter, your younger brother or sister, which makes me wonder, how could these young people master the art of asking why so well? Because it is only in asking the question why that lies understanding. The design thinking concept is broken down into 5 concrete steps. These steps are, step number 1 is to empathize, where you seek to understand the pain points of the users. Step number 2 is the define stage, where you seek to properly define the problems that your users are experiencing. Step number 3 is to ideate, where you simply allow your mind to flare and think of the craziest possible ideas to give solutions for the intended users. Now, at the ideation stage, interesting products have come across with interesting, innovative ideas developed by people such as Because International, who sought to answer one question: how can we design a shoe that grows? A product that has been put out in the market and tested for the underprivileged children in parts of Africa. The next stage of design thinking is the prototyping stage, where you are allowed to build the simplest form of representation of your idea so that the users can test and have an experience of the intended result. At the prototype stage during design thinking, we encourage people to use the simplest available tools to give the representation of the ideas. So if you're working on a mobile application, you can be crazy enough to just use paper instead. If you're trying to redefine a process, you can be crazy enough to just use role play instead. Any possible and simplest form of product that you could use to channel out that service into the market, you're encouraged to use that. The very final stage of design thinking is the testing stage. And at the testing stage, it's where you get out of the room with those paper mock-ups that you have and go out to the users. And at this stage, we seek to find emotions of satisfaction or relief from our users. We seek, through the simple paper representations that we have, to give them an idea that through the solution we are trying to build, we can actually provide that value for them. All these 5 stages of design thinking are flexible to be used in both companies that are well established, who are trying to redefine a particular process, or those that are just starting off and they're trying to explore different avenues of trying out their products. Now, upon taking in this mindset of design thinking, I have questioned most of the things around me, all from an angle of design, with one interesting question at this local context, whereby I ask myself, is it that those who are in charge care less about the precepts of design thinking and the impact of designing for use, or care less, or the consumers of these products care less about the delivery? Now, I have questioned from the design of roads to the design of buildings to the designs of processes, both done by private sector and government, wondering whether it meets our needs and are they useful as they say. Case scenario is the interesting BRT lane on our Thika Road. I believe most of us know about it. So, as Kenyans on Twitter went all berserk claiming that lipstick was painted on Thika Road, somehow I actually agree with them. Because a foreign concept was brought to us without the proper understanding of the local market, and even for both buses and private drivers on the road are not too sure whether they should be there or not, which makes me wonder, is it a useful solution for us, or is it just something borrowed from another country that does not meet our local needs? The same has made me question different things. For those of us who have been to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, a while back we used to have a good-looking pick-up point, but somehow we redesigned it into an open platform space where, woe unto you, if you land on a rainy day, you actually have to run into your car. But not to cut it short, that we have had some failures in design or other rooms for improvement, there have been some amazing products and services that we as a country are happy to talk about. Suppose I take you a while back to paint a picture of how life was before the introduction of mobile banking in Kenya. I know most of us have accustomed ourselves so much into the different mobile banking applications that we have that we might have forgotten how the scene was when you wanted to send money before. So in just 30 seconds, I'd like to share with you what I saw then. So my mother would try to camouflage money in all forms and shapes that she could think of, because the only available agents to send money then were post, and if you're maybe a government employee or well off enough, maybe you had a bank account. So money was camouflaged in tins. Lots of documents were put in envelopes just to ensure that money gets to the recipient safely. And in the process, most of our evenings, I won't fail to admit that we used to pray a lot that we find someone who is honest enough to deliver the money to the intended recipients. Now, mobile money introduction in Kenya at this point is nothing new to talk about, but in retrospect, did it really subscribe to the precepts of design thinking that we've just talked about before? I would say that there were questions about the whys. The team might have been very critical to try to answer particular questions. Why was it so difficult to send money in Kenya? Why was it so difficult to send money over the weekends? These are some of the questions that most of the teams around mobile banking in Kenya, with proper collaboration from both private sector, who built the infrastructure, and government itself, that created policies to enable this through the central bank, to actually help us every single day enjoy the benefits of sending money at the comfort of our mobile phones. If I take you a while back, within still the banking industry, the procedures of opening a bank account were tedious, at least for those who remember the year 2008 and before. But upon proper design and assessment of the impact of having a bank account for users, then it greatly shaped our day-to-day usage of both money access to loans and any other form of transactions that we need to do through the bank. Now, the precepts of design thinking has greatly shaped how I think. From the most of complicated processes that I have, by simply subscribing to a model of experimentation, being well aware that only when you experience failure, you're actually learning. And when you actually embrace failure in the process of experimentation, that's when you actually build products that are useful for the market. Now, why is it important for us to think about these things at this very moment? From the simplest of things around us, such as how we use our wallets, something so simple that we carry every day without even thinking about it. But I would assure you that if I asked the question, what is an ideal wallet in the room, I'd have as many different responses as we are all here. And the thing is simple. When we ask the questions why, different people will give us different feedback on the different products and services that we have. So one person in the room might tell me, I just need a colorful wallet that blends with the different clothes that I want to try. Someone else might tell me, I want a leather wallet, silk enough, that will give me a form of class. And for those who are like me, I just need a wallet that is thin enough, that when I sit down, because I use my back pocket, I just want to feel comfortable. All these are varied answers that we get when we simply ask the question why in the process of trying to define a solution to a problem. So, why do we need to think deeply about the concept of design thinking now? According to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, Kenya ranks as one of the fastest growing economies in Africa, and it's projected to be the leading by 2030. This brings about a number of unprecedented challenges within this very local context. Challenges around unemployment of the youth, challenges around healthcare plans, challenges around food insecurity, which we're even experiencing now. By subscribing to a simple model that allows us to experiment different solutions, by having a very different view of failure, and appreciating the fact that if you fail and learn fast, then you're making progress, we can definitely have very impactful solutions that meet our local context. Therefore, today I urge all of us to embrace our diversity of thought. I urge all of us to dare to think different. I urge all of us to pick on a culture of experimentation with a very different view of failure. Because in failure lies refinement. And it is only when we truly understand the power of thought that we shall surely experience the magic in design. Thank you very much.